I never imagined a millionaire would change my life after my stepmother's cruelty. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The weight of darkness in that house was almost suffocating. Each silent meal was like a funeral, a reminder that I didn't belong. My heart raced, and I could hear it thumping in my ears, echoing the fear of what would come next. It was a Tuesday like any other, but that day felt different. I stood in front of the cracked bathroom mirror, wiping the steam away. My reflection looked just as broken as the home I lived in. Behind me, I could hear the telltale clatter of my stepmother's heels against the floor, a sound that sent chills down my spine. Her laughter felt like daggers, always cutting deeper than words ever could. I wanted to scream, to run, to escape. My friends had ceased calling. I was buried in the heaviness of shame. With every passing day, I became a ghost even to myself. "Why can't you just be more like your sister?" she would sneer, her lips curling in disdain. There was no sister, she was a phantom, just another shadow I couldn't escape. Then the unexpected happened. I received an anonymous invitation. Intrigued and terrified, I read it over and over. "You are invited to a gala that will change your life." My eyes widened. Just the thought of being surrounded by wealth was intoxicating yet terrifying. What did it mean? The mystery wrapped around me, leaving me breathless. As I stood clutching the ornate invitation, the colors swirled in my vision: crimson, red, gold, luxurious black. My heart raced again, but now it was a wild kind of race, a spark of hope amidst the shadows. The thought of stepping into a world beyond my stepmother's cruelty, a world of dreams, filled my chest with warmth, even if only for a moment. But with hope came dread. What if I wasn't good enough? What if I made a fool of myself? The questions ricocheted inside my mind, loud and vicious. I shuddered, felt a pang of nausea rise in my throat. I didn't belong anywhere. Still, the allure of the gala pulled me in. A millionaire could see me, the real me. I imagined their eyes, glazed with interest, intrigued by the girl who survived the thunder of chaos at home. That night, everything changed. I stood outside the grand mansion, the laughter and music spilling out like magic into the cool air. The lights flickered like stars, illuminating the path beneath my trembling feet. My heart hammered against my ribcage as I stepped through the doors. I could hardly breathe. Then it happened. A pair of piercing blue eyes met mine. In the crowd, he stood out tall, confident, and impossibly charismatic. I was caught in his gaze, and everything else melted away. "Are you lost?" he asked, his voice smooth like silk. My chest tightened. The warmth of his presence swallowed my fears, just for a moment. But the moment shattered with a sudden crash. My stepmother's voice echoed in my mind, "You'll never be enough." The weight of her words lingered in the shadows, tainting the magic around me. I stumbled back, my heart racing for a different reason now. Who was this stranger? Why did he feel like my last hope? As I prepared to answer, a tug of panic seized me. Something was off, a feeling gnawed at my gut. I needed to know who this person really was, and what secrets lay behind those incredible blue eyes. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As I struggled to breathe in the gilded opulence around me, my fingers trembled, still clutching the invitation, my lifeline to this unexpected world. The blue-eyed stranger's brow furrowed with concern as he took a step closer, his presence commanding yet disarming. I felt the sharp edges of my insecurities pressing against me like walls, the rising tide of disbelief threatening to wash away this moment. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice dropping to a hushed warmth that sent a shiver down my spine. I caught myself staring, unable to find my words, a tidal wave of emotions crashing over me. He was more than just a passing interest. He was a beacon of light shining through my darkness, and I was terrified of what that meant. Memories of my stepmother's scathing remarks invaded my thoughts, warning me that I wouldn't fit into this world. I began to feel out of place, the elegant ballroom and sophisticated guests all transformed into instruments of judgment. With each passing moment, the music swelled, and the laughter echoed louder, stitching together the fabric of this opulent affair. But for me, it was a cocoon of isolation. Until he spoke again, breaking through the fog of my thoughts. "Why don't you join me for a drink? I promise it's not poisoned," he chuckled, and despite myself, a small smile creased my lips. "Sure," I managed, my voice a whisper, still unfurling as though it had been locked away. He extended his arm, a soft invitation, and I took it, feeling an electric pulse race through where our skin met. With every step we took toward the bar, I caught glimpses of people in gowns that shimmered like galaxies and men in tailored suits, all laughing and dancing. A sense of longing filled me, each bubble of champagne air laced with dreams I dared not voice. Would they ever see beyond the stooped shoulders, the unfashionable clothes, the girl who had spent years in silent torment? "What's your name?" he asked, leaning slightly closer, genuine curiosity in his eyes. "Elena," I replied, surprised at how easily it rolled off my tongue. It felt weighty, somehow significant in this moment, like it carried the promise of something more. I like it. "It suits you," he smiled, and I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. His gaze lingered for what felt like a lifetime yet faded into a moment, the chaos of the gala swirling around us. As my nerves began to settle, I found a hint of courage blooming within me, a seed watered by his kindness. I took a deep breath and dared to ask the question that had been prickling at the back of my mind since I arrived. "What brings you here?" "Oh, I just like to have a good time," he replied with a light-hearted air, the ease in his words soothing my anxious heart. "But my family organizes these things for networking. They're big into philanthropy." "Philanthropy?" The word felt heavy, almost foreign to my ears. In my world it had been a distant concept, something seen from afar while I had been caught in the storm of survival. "Yeah," he continued, trying to make a difference, one event at a time. "You'd be surprised how many people donate just for the sake of it. It makes a real impact. Do you believe in it?" I asked, intrigued. "Absolutely," he said, passionate conviction dancing in his blue eyes. "Everyone deserves a chance to thrive, don't you think?" "Yes," I wanted to shout. Having someone believe in the possibility of thriving felt like a foreign dream, an unreachable horizon. I opened my mouth, ready to reveal the truth of my life, but hesitation wrapped itself around my words, pulling them back. Before I could decide, a sharp laugh pierced through our conversation. "Me stepmother." I turned, panic coursing through me. She was surrounded by her usual entourage, and I could see the disdainful glance she shot in my direction like a dart. The air turned thick with unspoken judgments. "You can't hide forever, Elena," she called, her voice dripping with venomous delight. "This isn't your place." Heat filled my cheeks again, mortification washing over me, but the man beside me stood tall, launching a protective arm around my shoulders. "I think she's exactly where she needs to be," he said, unwavering, but the facade of comfort shattered a split second later. I couldn't bear the idea of my reality crashing down in front of him, of him discovering the truth of my life. Before I could respond, my stepmother approached us, her eyes narrowing in contempt. "Who is this?" she sneered, eyeing him up and down with disdain. "This is Elena," he said, his voice calm and strong. "And she's doing just fine. Don't you think she deserves some kindness?" The tension hung heavy. I felt a wave of grounding electrify me, but my heart was racing in fear. What if my truth was laid bare? A surprised murmur rippled through those standing nearby, unable to mask their intrigue. Then came the most unexpected twist. The stranger's brow furrowed with fierce determination as he added, "You should be proud of her." The realization smacked me like a gust of wind, forcing me to take a step back. This stranger, this seemingly perfect savior, was taking a stand for me, but at what cost? His words lingered in the air, suspended between us, as I grappled with the heavy weight of their significance. Could this truly be a life-changing moment? Or would my past come crashing down, dragging him and any trace of hope along with it? In that moment, I felt an urge to flee but was rooted in place by the uncertainty of what would happen next, as my world threatened to unravel in front of a growing crowd. I felt my heart pound in my chest as I stood frozen, torn between the urge to flee from my stepmother's icy glare and the impulse to cling to the warmth this stranger offered. The whispering crowd swirled around us, each pair of eyes drinking in the spectacle, judging silently, as if our lives were a play unfolding on stage. "Elena doesn't need your validation, Mother," I whispered before I could stop myself, my voice shaky yet deep with defiance. "Would it make things worse?" The rebellion against her words burst forth like lava, hot and sudden, but there was no taking it back. "Heh, look at that! The little mouse has found a lion," my stepmother laughed, the cruelty in her tone biting deeper than her venomous words. I felt a squirm of vulnerability wash over me, replaying every moment of my past that led me here, every time she had belittled my worth, every time I had chosen silence over confrontation. But the blue-eyed stranger beside me felt different. His presence eclipsed the shadows of my insecurities as I looked up at him, searching his face for any sign of regret. Instead, I found steadfastness in his features, a quiet strength that steadied me. Driven by an instinct I could neither ignore nor define, I turned to him and took a deep breath. "Thank you for standing up for me. You don't have to do this." But there was a flicker in my heart, a surge of hope that perhaps someone could believe in me, even in the depths of this moment. "Sometimes, it's the least expected encounters that teach us the most about ourselves," he replied. His gaze was unwavering, piercing through the thick walls I had built up over the years. My stepmother huffed, her lips twisting in disdain. "Encounters like this don't last, sweet girl. Remember that, darling," she snapped, her voice oozing with jealousy and malice. She waved her hand dismissively, as if I were nothing more than a fleeting annoyance. "You'll never belong here." As she turned to leave, I felt the world tilt. The weight of humiliation pushed down on me, and for a moment, rage surged within. "I am here," I shouted louder than I intended, the room lurching toward silence as every eye turned back to me. "And I will not be ashamed of who I am." My voice cracked and faltered at the end, a bubble of uncertainty seeping in, but echoes of unexpected courage made me stand firm. A pause stretched between my words and the murmured replies of those who had gathered. The blue-eyed stranger's arm tightened around me, reinforcing what I had just claimed. "Can you believe that?" one of the elite guests whispered loudly, their voice drenched with incredulity. "She actually thinks she deserves to be here." I was reeling, the sharpness of her words piercing through the fragile shield I had constructed. A part of me wanted to sink into the ground, to melt away and disappear. But another part, a raw, aching truth, yearned to push back even harder, to prove my worth beyond all doubt. "What do you even know about where I come from?" I called out, my voice steadier than expected, igniting the response of a dwindling crowd of whispers. "I might not fit your definition of elegance, but I have a heart that beats with ambition, and am more than the sum of my past." The blue-eyed stranger nodded, pride replacing the concern in his eyes and drawing forth an exhilarating rush of warmth flooding my veins. There was electricity, a silent agreement pulsing between us. The belief that I was worthy of standing up for myself was birthed in part by his support. "Sometimes," he murmured, "the biggest truths come from our quietest voices." I barely caught the glimmer of insight in his gaze before the reality of the moment crashed back down. My stepmother smirked, irritation radiating off her as she turned away. "This isn't over, Elena," she threatened, her tone a promise of ramifications to come, one that sent a jolt of fear through me. "I think it already is," I replied, my voice a mixture of confidence and uncertainty. My body trembled, the adrenaline fading, leaving me with raw exposure and the mounting reality of a battle yet to come. As I exhaled, feeling the profound strength of this newfound resolve mingling with the stark fear of my stepmother's words, the stranger leaned a fraction closer, our eyes locking. "You've already won the first round," he said softly, catching me off guard with his sincerity. "You showed incredible bravery. Don't let anyone take that from you." Something deep inside me stirred an ember that had long been smothered, not by the world's expectations but by the chains of my self-doubt. I felt a spark of something like hope. Yet, with my heart racing, reality began to crowd in once again. The unkindness of my past still loomed ahead, ready to trap me back into its grip. I stole a glance at my stepmother, plotting her next moves, and the shadows stretched longer within my mind. As the gala continued in disjointed factions around us, I sensed an uncertainty hovering in the air, like an echo of what might come next. The stranger's presence was a balm, yet I feared that with every challenge I met, the struggle to maintain this courage would only grow. "What now?" I whispered, finally taking a risk. Asking felt like navigating unknown territory, but it was a question that promised more than it let on: hope, grace, and perhaps even a chance to find the life I had dreamt of. He turned to me, those blue eyes deepening with an unspoken understanding, holding a reservoir of shared struggles that neither of us could quite articulate. Just as he opened his mouth to respond, the chandelier's light flickered ominously above us, casting fleeting shadows that left my breath caught in my throat. Another figure drew near, silhouetted against the polished trapeze, a woman with an air of authority whose sharp gaze settled directly on me. My stomach churned. Who was she? What did she want? "What are you doing mingling with the help?" she asked coolly, cutting through the moment like a knife, and as I felt my heart plummet, all I could think was, "Here we go again." The sting of her words reverberated through me, a raw and familiar echo of the insecurities my stepmother had instilled. My heart raced painfully against my ribs as I grappled with the sudden surge of embarrassment. I felt as though I had been thrust back into the role of the overlooked girl, those years of neglect drowning me in a well of vulnerability. "Where do you belong, exactly?" the woman continued, her eyes sharp, dissecting me before the crowd. I could feel the heat of their stares pining for a reaction, a spectacle to feast upon. I was nothing but a pawn in someone else's game, and the unsettling truth was, I didn't know how to play. Enough. The blue-eyed stranger stepped forward, a protective barrier between me and the onslaught. "She's not a piece for you to judge. She's strong, and you don't even begin to understand her worth." His boldness surprised me, the vehemence in his voice like warm arms wrapping around my trembling heart, pushing back against the chill creeping in. Each word was like a lifeline, anchoring me in a tempest of cruel uncertainty. I caught his gaze, electrifying with a depth of feeling that made my heart leap. "Is that so?" the woman replied, her tone laced with condescension. "How touching. But what can someone like her possibly contribute to our world?" I inhaled sharply, my breath catching in my throat. It was a venomous jab, one that awakened the shame I had buried beneath my resolve. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words tangled in my throat, a choking vine of doubt sprouting where confidence had just taken root. With a keen sense of urgency, the blue-eyed stranger quickly reasserted himself. "You're mistaken. Everyone has something to offer. Sometimes it's hidden until someone finds it." He turned to me, urging me to find that spark, to spark the fires of resilience deep within, as torrents of disapproval washed over my skin. "Perhaps," the woman said, rolling her eyes, "but some flames burn brighter than others. And hers will never be enough." "Watch me," I blurted out before I could fully comprehend my own audacity, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. A thin layer of courage coated my resolve, and perhaps it was the stranger's unwavering presence that nudged me forward. "You don't know me. I will prove you wrong." The onlookers shifted uneasily, whispering among themselves, eager to absorb the spectacle as they watched this unexpected confrontation unfurl. I felt a swell of indignation rising within me, waking dormant dreams of a life unbound by someone else's expectations. But before I could gather my thoughts, my stepmother reappeared, now beside the stern woman. Her wicked smile gleamed like glass, reflecting a cruel joy I had seen too many times before. "Oh, my delicate flower! Are you still under the impression this is a fairy tale where you can believe in your worth? This is reality, and perhaps it's time you wake up before you embarrass yourself further. Why don't you let her speak for herself?" the blue-eyed stranger said, a hint of defiance in his tone that sparked flickers of hope in the gathered crowd. "She's tired of being silenced. Aren't you, Elena?" The words emboldened me, igniting the smoldering courage I had concealed for far too long. The room felt electric as I tore my gaze from my stepmother and fixed it on the man who believed in me, desperately searching for the words to shatter my past. Am not ashamed of where I come from. I've fought every day to be where I am, and I won't let any no matter how well dressed belittle my worth. A hushed breath ran through the gallery, the weight of my declaration palpable. For a moment, everything hung suspended in time, until the woman smirked, insulated behind layers of privilege. Well, see how long that fire lasts. It won't take much for the wind to blow it out. In your case, any shred of integrity seems a threatening breeze. I snapped back, a rush of heat flooding my cheeks. There was something liberating about embracing the fire burning within. For a heartbeat, I felt invincible. You have no idea who you're talking to, do you? The woman countered, icy demeanor unyielding. Do you even think you can compete with what the world expects? The tension thickened, an invisible web of past trauma latching onto us both. The clarity of my newfound strength felt like a delicate dance on the edge of a precipice, while the threat of unseen depths lingered below. Am not competing with anyone. Am here to show you I exist. I advise you to tread carefully, dear Elena, my stepmother chimed in maliciously. Remember who holds the cards in this game. I felt fear prick at my resolve, yet the blue-eyed stranger remained grounded, his strength radiating off him in reassuring waves. What if the cards were never meant to be stacked against you? What if you took back the very things they think they own? Our moment was suddenly interrupted by loud applause. To my astonishment, I turned to see some of the guests in the crowd clapping, faces mingled with surprise and admiration. Murmurs swept through them, moments of unexpected kindness emerging like rays of sun through dark clouds, illuminating paths where I thought there were none. And yet, just as hope began to bloom, my focus shifted toward my stepmother's face. It twisted into something dark and foreboding, her lips moving almost in slow motion. You'll regret this next time I speak, you foolish girl, she snarled, her eyes flaring with resentment. Just then, the blue-eyed stranger leaned closer, his voice a warm murmur that filled the space between our hearts. Don't let them snuff you out. You're not just here to survive, you're here to fight. My heart raced as a new surge of defiance rooted itself deep within. But as I held his gaze, the crowd continued its cacophony of mixed reactions, a swell of support slowly morphing into tension under the power of my stepmother's looming presence. And then, with a suddenness that sent chills creeping up my spine, the woman stepped back, gesturing toward the entrance with a chilling smile. I think it's time we all had a little chat, one that's long overdue. Don't you, Elena? Your little display of courage deserves an audience. Panic twisted in my stomach as realization dawned. This was no ordinary conversation. My heart lurched in fear as I gazed around the room, wary of what might unfold in the shadows, knowing full well that what lay ahead could change everything. Would I break under pressure, or could I find an inner strength that stood the test of true command? With a nod, she beckoned me forward, and an all-consuming dread prickled my skin. The path to my confrontation with reality lay ahead, darker than I had anticipated, and I could feel the ground beneath me shifting. In that very moment, the world began to spin again around the shadow of retribution, drawing me closer to a revelation I wasn't sure I was ready for. As I took a hesitant step toward the open doorway, my heart thudded in my chest like a drum, reverberating the urgency of my impending fate. Everything around me felt unreal, as if I were moving through a thick mist that blurred the edges of reality, leaving only the sensation of eyes watching, poking, and prodding at my every movement. The blue-eyed stranger shifted beside me, a silent pillar amid the swirling chaos. He knew what was at stake, the layers of cruelty rooted deep in my upbringing, the stakes higher than I dared imagine. Yet still, as I walked into the uncertainty, my breath caught at the corners of my resolve, intertwining hope with an undercurrent of fear. Don't forget, he whispered softly, just before the door closed behind us. Whatever happens, I'm here. His voice was a tether anchoring me amidst the tempest. We stepped out into a sunlit hallway that loomed eerily bright against the darker interactions that had just transpired. It felt almost surreal, as if life was attempting to distract me from the storm brewing just around the corner, but all I could do was clutch at the flutter of anxiety tangling in the pit of my stomach. Right this way, my stepmother purred, a predatory glint in her eyes as she gestured for me to follow. I knew that glance well. It was the kind of look that signaled a cruel game was about to unfold, one that relied on manipulation, guilt, and my own oversights. With quick strides, she led me into a smaller room, the air dense with expectation. A few people awaited us, shadows of the patrons that thrived on power plays and whispered deceptions. Among them, I spotted the same woman from before, her gaze glimmering with triumph, as though savoring each moment of my impending humiliation. "Sit, dear." My stepmother's voice oozed syrupy sweetness that made my skin crawl, but I dutifully obeyed, sinking into the plush chair that offered little comfort in this fertile ground of impending judgment. The others took their seats, the room tightening with a palpable energy of anticipation. "Now, Elena," she began, her tone now coolly formal, "I believe we need to discuss your latest outburst. It seems you've made a rather impressionable mark." Her lips curled into a smile, one devoid of sincerity, revealing the jagged edges of her true nature. One of the guests, a portly man with a silver watch gleaming on his wrist, leaned forward in interest. "Yes, what did you think you were doing? Challenging someone of influence in such a public manner?" His inquiry was meant to silence, stifle, and push me back into the shadows where I belonged. I opened my mouth, ready to defend my actions, a recursive surge of defiance sparking in my chest. Enough," my stepmother interrupted, her voice a sharp knife. "You don't get to speak while I'm addressing our friends. After all, your worth is tied to how you present yourself to them, isn't it?" Her words stung, but they also ignited a smoldering ember inside me, one that yearned for air. With a deep breath, I resolutely replied, "Maybe my worth shouldn't depend on anyone but myself." The room fell silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. The eyes that had glimmered with anticipation now widened in surprise. But what surprised me most was an unexpected warmth that radiated from the blue-eyed stranger beyond the door, pooling courage in my heart as though he were silently willing me to push through the wall of turmoil. "Out of the mouths of the naive," my stepmother chided, leaning back as if my defiance was nothing more than an entertaining jest. "It's adorable, really. Believing that true worth comes from realizing one's self. Life isn't that kind to dreamers like you, my dear." But in that moment, overshadowing the weight of her words, was a shift in the dynamic of the room. One by one, I noticed subtle actions and exchange of glances, a slight nod here and there that told me some among them felt the stirrings of sympathy, possibly even admiration. Even the woman from before softened for just a moment, revealing the cracks in her polished exterior, as she exchanged a knowing glance with another guest. Perhaps they were not the monsters I had envisioned. At that thought, an intoxicating rush of warmth swept through me, and yet, when the moment passed, the emotional tension retightened, and my stepmother's voice sliced through the room once more. "What will it take to make you understand? Perhaps we need to raise the stakes." A chill swept through me at her words. I felt the sudden weight of precariousness swell, a storm approaching faster than I could process. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask, the two words strained with equal parts fear and curiosity. "This," she said with a flick of her wrist, "is a matter of choice. The people here can help lift you or let you fall. But if one little girl wants to prove she's worthy, she better be ready to face some hard truths. If you're ready to confront your flaws, we can turn this into a lesson." A lesson? My insides quivered as I processed the implications of her challenge. What price would they exact? What battles would they force me to face? My thoughts raced back to the resentment, the fear that had been sown within me like a weed choking my ability to bloom. Just as I was about to respond, a shout pierced the air from the other side of the closed door. A crash resonated, a sound stark in the haze of the moment. All eyes shifted back to the entrance as the heavy door swung open, revealing a pair of security guards who stood there, expressions taut with urgency. "Sir, ma'am, there's been a breach," one of them exclaimed, his voice echoing through the room. And my heart dropped as I met the incredulous stares of my stepmother and her companions. I didn't know in that moment whether to feel terrified or elated. A chance was unfolding, a distraction breaking the stifling hold of my stepmother's impending lesson. In that moment, everything changed. As the guards entered, a ripple of excitement mixed with dread surged through the room like electricity. "A breach?" My stepmother's voice quivered, rare cracks appearing in her meticulously crafted facade. The usual glimmer of control in her eyes dulled slightly. Uncertainty replaced her predatory glint as the attendees exchanged anxious glances. "Stay here," one of the guards instructed, his tone firm yet wary. "We have to ensure the premises are secure." In the chaos, I found my mind racing, drowning in a tempest of thoughts. My heart hammered against my ribcage, pounding out rhythms of dread and yearning. Would this be my chance to escape the suffocating grip of my stepmother's carefully orchestrated prison? A way to slip through the cracks of the lives that had kept my spirit boxed in. But then, without warning, the blue-eyed stranger, the wiry figure who had anchored me just moments before, appeared in the doorway, tears streaking down his cheeks, eyes wide with an urgency I had never before seen. "Elena! Please, you have to listen!" There, before he could finish, chaos erupted. The room was thrown into shadow, a figure bolted past the guards, eyes wide with desperation as they rushed inside. I barely made out the silhouette of a young man, soaked in sweat, his chest heaving like he had run a marathon. "Help!" he shouted breathlessly, desperately scanning the room. "There's no time. You have to trust me." The atmosphere transformed. Instead of a court of judgment, the room became a stage for unknown revelations. I instinctively felt my stepmother tense beside me, her face a mask of frustration and rage. "What is the meaning of this? Who are you?" she snapped, her voice laced with venom yet tinged with a hint of fear. "My name is Jake," the intruder gasped, clutching his side as though the very air he breathed was thick with suffocation. "I was told to find her. I need to get her out of here." The gravity of his words sent shockwaves through my being. "Get me out?" My breath caught as something deep inside me began to stir a sense of safety that I hadn't felt in years. But who was this Jake, and how did he know I needed saving? "Let me guess," continued my stepmother, her composure eroding with each passing moment. "You think you're the hero in this pathetic farce?" Her sarcasm dripped like poison, but it only seemed to fuel Jake's resolve. "I am no hero, but I've seen what's coming. You don't understand." Ferocity, my stepmother grabbed my arm, her grip like iron. "You're not going anywhere." The battle lines were drawn, and uncertainty hung in the air like thick fog. My heart raced, caught in a storm of conflicting emotions as I met Jake's unwavering gaze across the room, expanding the narrow conception of what family could mean in this moment of dire urgency. Just then, a loud explosion echoed from outside, reverberating off the walls, and everything changed. The world shifted beneath my feet as the assertion of control morphed into chaos. Lights flickered, and I felt my heart sink lower as the cries of panic erupted from the room's corners. The moment had come. What would I choose, trapped between my stepmother's suffocating grip and the wild promise of freedom beckoning me in Jake's pained yet hopeful eyes? The air grew thick with possibility, bubbling over as I felt the pull of the unknown. Then, just when it seemed hope could lead the way, I heard my stepmother's chilling whisper in my ear. "You think you can escape? You have no idea what you're up against. I can still ruin you, Elena. Even now." Even after all this, with a heart that felt both heavy and light at the same time, I stood at the brink of choice, gazing into the swirling tempest of my future. Uncertainty loomed, but amidst the chaos, I knew I would have to decide whether to unfold into the shadows of fear or step into the light of potential, blind courage wrapped in the face of the unknown. And then, the door shattered inward, a flash of bright chaos slicing through my reality, rippling forth with a new sense of everything I could lose and everything that lay ahead. The moment hung in suspended time. What awaited beyond that threshold was a secret I couldn't yet comprehend, and it terrified me to my core. The room erupted in a whirlwind of confusion as the door splintered under the force of a new arrival. Shadows danced against the walls, illuminated by the blinding light of the outside world that poured in like a torrential flood. My stepmother's grip loosened under the chaos, and I felt the sting of adrenaline surging through my veins. Every ounce of my reality trembled on the edge of transformation. I had to choose. Run! Jake's stifled shout pierced through the cacophony, a rallying cry that resonated deep within me. Yet the moment hung like a thread pulled taut, threatening to snap under the weight of insurmountable fear. My heart thudded dully in my chest, bewildered and yearning for something I could scarcely name. I took a step toward Jake, but something held me back. The cold gaze of my stepmother. The mask of control she wore began to splinter as shock painted her features. "You can't leave, Elena!" she hissed, desperation coating each word. "You don't know who these people are. You don't know what you're getting into." Her voice crackled with the electricity of fear and fury, but for the first time, my heart felt invulnerable, fortified by an emerging defiance. I no longer wanted to be shackled by her opinions, her fears, or the scope of her power. I was tired of being a pawn in her game. With a sudden fiery conviction, I stepped closer to Jake, the warmth of his presence grounding me amidst the storm. "What's going on?" I demanded, breathless. "Why does it feel like the world is falling apart?" "Because it is," he replied, his blue eyes filled with relentless urgency. "There's something threatening everyone beneath the surface, and it's coming for you too. But we can fight it if you trust me." Before I could soak in the enormity of his words, a figure surged into the room behind Jake, another man, tall and imposing yet radiating a sense of calm confidence. He swept his gaze over the chaos before locking it in on me. "Elena, we don't have time. Trust us now, explain later." Then I remembered the whispered threats from my stepmother, the veiled warnings about losing everything. A flicker of doubt threatened to extinguish the spark of hope ignited by Jake. Questions swirled in my mind, grappling for dominance. What if they were dangerous? What if I was damning myself to a fate worse than my current existence through this impulsive choice? Yet, as the explosions reverberated outside, I caught a glimpse of what courage looked like in Jake's eyes, an unwavering flame that beckoned me closer. It was a reminder of every moment I had cowered under my stepmother's reign, every time I had buried my own desires in the depths of someone else's shadow. A deafening roar cut through the air, drawing my attention. The carefully curated world around me felt fragile, crumbling under the enormous weight of my indecision. I turned to my stepmother one last time, searching for the remnant of love I hoped still resided there. "You never cared about me," I whispered, my voice steady despite the maelstrom raging within. "You cared about control." Her face twisted into a snarl, the mask of the protective matriarch completely shattered. "You ungrateful child. You think this outburst will earn you love elsewhere? You're nothing without me." The bitterness of her words stung, igniting a fire I hadn't known existed. I clung to it, fortifying my resolve against her venomous tirade. "I am someone," I asserted, feeling the resistance coiling in my heart, "even if you don't see it." Then, without another thought, I turned on my heel and sprinted toward Jake, defiance and exhilaration surging together. Everything felt impossibly raw, like I was shedding my old skin with each determined stride. As I made my way past the guards who had once intimidated me, I caught sight of their faces. Fear flickered in their eyes, to a reminder of the imminent storm bearing down on us all. Just as I reached Jake, a powerful explosion ripped through the air outside, shaking the very foundation of the building. The rumbling echoed in my bones, and I felt the weight of everything I would leave behind. I had been ready to ask him who he was, the identity of this unexpected savior, but in the back of my mind, the question grew more pressing. Who was I if I chose to leave? In one swift motion, Jake grabbed my hand, urgency palpable in his every gesture. "We have to go, now." Before I could say a word, the imposing man who had entered behind Jake turned to face me. "There's no turning back, Elena. You need to understand, whatever is happening here is far from ordinary. Everything you think you know may be a lie." His statement hung in the air, each syllable dripping with ominous intent. What had my life become? Then, just as clarity began to emerge from the storm, my stepmother's voice sliced through the chaos one last time, filled with a chilling finality. "You won't survive without me," and with that the last thread of hesitation snapped. As Jake began to pull me towards freedom, I took a deep breath, fighting against the myriad shades of uncertainty swirling in my chest. Right then, I chose my fate, my life, and everything that came with it. The moment we dashed through the shattering doorway and into the unfolding unknown, I scarcely registered the glimmer of sunlight breaking through the clouds above, a promise of hope, however fragile, sitting patiently on the horizon. But before the world could breathe again, a final jolt of thunder echoed from the shadows, and an intense fear bloomed in my chest, the realization that whatever awaited us outside would be fraught with danger. But what gripped me more tightly was the shadow of my past, lingering like a ghost. I didn't know whether my stepmother's warnings were steeped in truth or in spite, but one thing was clear: my new beginning was painted with the hues of uncertainty, punctuated by the only resolute choice I had been left with to survive whatever lay ahead, even if the very fabric of my world unraveled in the process. The air outside was electric, its charge filling my lungs as Jake pulled me into the multitude of chaos. Sirens wailed in the distance, mingled with the cries of what sounded like shattered lives around us. The world I knew clung precariously to its former self, already stripping away the layers of my existence one fragmented moment at a time. Jake's hand was warm around mine, and I mutely grounded myself in that sensation, a lifeline amidst the storms swirling around us. "Where are we going?" I gasped, my breath coming in stark bursts, unsure whether I was more afraid of what had just happened or the uncharted path we tread upon. He shot me a quick, reassuring look. "Just a little ways down. I promise, we'll be safer there." Closer, I caught sight of the imposing man's features, a hardness etched into his jawline and a flicker of wariness lingering in his steely gaze. He seemed to read the unspoken question unfolding in my mind before it matched my trembling lips. "Elena, listen closely," he commanded, his voice low but insistent as we ducked behind an abandoned vehicle. "This isn't just about you anymore. What's coming is bigger than both of us." I wanted to understand it all. My heart raced with the need for comprehension, the hope for clarity, and yet, every time I sought to ask a question, the gravity of our circumstances weighed down my voice. "Who are you? What is threatening us? Are we safe with you?" The man took a deep breath, his facade cracking ever so slightly. "I'm Nathan. There are forces at play that you'll only understand if you're willing to see beyond the veil your stepmother has cast over your life." "Why is she so terrified?" I pushed back, the ghost of her disdain echoed in my mind. "What does she even want from me? Control, power." "She's afraid that losing you means losing her grip on everything she's built," he replied, his tone grave and deliberate. With each word, fragments of the past carved deeper into my heart. The gnawing uncertainty wrapped around me like a thick cloak. My stepmother was a curator of lies, a puppet master whose strings I yearned to sever, yet the choice I had made to abandon her felt delicate, fragile, with consequences I couldn't yet fathom. "Here, we can regroup," Jake interjected, urgency spurting forth as he led us to the rear entrance of a nearby building. Its weathered exterior offered anonymity and protection, a stark contrast to the turmoil of the world outside. Inside, the space was dim, the atmosphere rebounding with muffled chaos from the streets we had escaped. The tangible fear had transformed, swirling and coiling shadows flickering across the walls like whispers of forgotten stories. I leaned against a column, inhaling the scent of damp wood and dust, anchored momentarily in this unexpected sanctuary. My mind raced, tracking the threads connecting my past to the uncertain present. "Does it have to come to violence?" I asked, half pleading, half hollow. "Am I truly caught in some battle I don't understand?" Before Nathan could respond, the heavy doors swung open, and a young woman burst in, eyes wide and frantic. "Jake! You're back!" There her breath caught, stinging with fear, before she refocused on me. "Who is she?" "She's important. We're in this together now," Jake affirmed, his voice imbued with a fierce loyalty that warmed me amidst the cold steel of uncertainty wrapping around my heart. The young woman, her name darted across my mind but eluded recognition. Nodded at my presence, her apprehension softening slightly. "You've just left a world that has no idea what's coming, have you?" "No, not really," I murmured, revealing the terrible truth with a mixture of vulnerability and firmness. "I'm trying to figure it out myself." As we settled into our new, intimate circle of survivors, a heaviness occupied the air, youthful faces shrouded in shadows, determination steeped in the silence between us. Hope flickered dimly like the uneven light cast by an emergency lantern, feeble yet persistent. "I don't even know what we're fighting," I admitted, feeling the weight of every accusation and fear burrowing deeper. "Do you really think it's all true? That my stepmother has been hiding something catastrophic, something that could hurt us all?" Heavens, yes, Nathan replied, his ferocity anchoring our reality. This isn't just your family. It's a legacy of darkness surrounding everything she's a part of. You are the nexus of what's at stake, Elena. Her influence stretches wider than you realize. The enormity of it all suffocated me. Every breath felt labored as if the walls themselves pressed down with unyielding tension. My identity, crafted under her weight, felt as delicate as a spider's web, one that had been spun to ensnare and redefine me, hiding myself in the shadows of someone else's design. Then what can I possibly do? I whispered, my voice breaking on the precipice of despair. Fight back, Jake said, stepping closer, the glow of determination illuminating his expression. You have a strength inside of you, Elena. It's time you use it. In that moment, a flicker of resolve ignited, trembling under the tension of everything I had lost and all that lay ahead. But before I could accept it, a loud crash erupted from the street above, sending shockwaves through our hiding place. My heart plummeted into the darkness, as sheer panic flooded my veins. An unwelcome thought crept in. I couldn't shake the feeling that we might be too late. Then, as everything went still, the door burst open once more, and Nathan's eyes widened in terror. They found us. But at the same instant, I felt a surge of power untapped, a whisper within that told me to stand my ground. Just as I began to conjure a response that I hoped would steer our course, Nathan drew his weapon. The echoes of a life I'd known collided violently with the fierce reality of survival. No! I screamed, just as a piercing light flooded through the doorway, a harbinger of devastation that rendered me helpless amidst the shadows. And I realized then, standing on the precipice of terror and courage, I had to make the choice again and again to fight for the woman I was destined to become, to embrace an uncertainty that could either liberate or obliterate me. But before I could wrap my head around it, everything shifted. The roar of footsteps, a silhouette surrounding the door, and a chilling refrain whispered through my mind. The battle was only just beginning. The air felt thick with impending doom, an unshakable tension that knotted my stomach as the flood of light from the doorway illuminated three unfamiliar faces, starkly contrasting the familiar danger lingering in Nathan's eyes. Panic surged, each heartbeat loud and demanding a relentless thrumming that pushed anticipation to the brink. Get back! Nathan shouted, lifting the weapon and directing its cold barrel toward the intruders. My heart raced, but my mind wrestled with clarity and confusion. Were these foes or allies disguised in the chaos? One of them, a tall figure dressed in dark attire, raised his hands slowly, a gesture of peace or perhaps cunning. We mean you no harm, he asserted, his voice sharp yet oddly soothing amidst the uproar. We are here to help, help. Jake spat back, skepticism dripping from his words. And trust you how? You decided to storm in here without a thought for whose lives you might endanger. The man remained unfazed, tilting his head with an air of calm. Our fight is not with you. We're working against the shadows your stepmother wields. But if you intend to collaborate, you need to trust us, as difficult as that may be. Each second stretched painfully long while I grasped the enormity of his claim, eyes darting among Nathan, Jake, and the newcomer. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, even as another voice whispered that perhaps the truth lay entangled in this web of improvised alliances. Who are you? I managed to ask, my voice trembling on the edge of uncertainty. I am Caleb, he replied, his gaze steady. And these are my companions, Mira and Ross. We've been keeping tabs on your stepmother's dealings, dark secrets that intertwine with our own past. We came for you, Elena. This is far from over, but we can stand against it together. I don't understand, I breathed, my mind a storm of chaos. What could I possibly offer to this battle? It felt all-consuming, fraught with the impending weight of decisions I didn't want to make. Your stepmother's facade must be shattered, Mira chimed in, her voice a gentle ripple in the raging tide. You will unlock the truth that has been withheld from you. But you need to embrace your strength. It's what your power stems from, whatever it may be. Her words wrapped around me, sparking an unfamiliar warmth against the chill of fear. Courage ebbed from somewhere deep, intertwining with the urgency swarming the cramped space. What do you mean by power? I found myself asking. Jake, sensing my hesitation, cautiously stepped forward, his proximity a source of encouragement. Elena, this isn't just about your family's legacy. Your mother lived a life enshrouded in potential, and your stepmother fears that you may inherit something greater. You have more depth than you think, but you've been hindered by her chains. For a fleeting moment, something glimmered inside me, an echo of belief in what I could become. But even as hope lifted my spirit, the weight of expectation pressed heavy against my chest. Could I truly submit to the tumultuous tide of resistance, and let the chains of my upbringing fall away? Suddenly, a loud explosion erupted outside, a violent tremor that shook the building's skeletal frame and sent us stumbling. The sound drowned out the silence we had all temporarily found amidst the chaos. Echoes of far-off shouting followed, imbued with urgency. "Time is running out," Caleb urged, his voice capturing my wandering thoughts. "We can't linger here. If she finds out we're assembled, we won't be able to rally against her. My perspective shifted dramatically in that moment as adrenaline coursed through me. Was it fight or flight? I could taste the air charged with fear and determination. What do I need to do? My question hung in the space between us, filled with the trauma of secrets I had stumbled into. Mira stepped closer, her eyes sparkling with a fierce intensity. "Well, gather another ally, someone who knows her well. An informant. But we can't split up for too long. We need to act like a unit. Trust me, I've been where you are now, suffocated under the expectations of lies. The urgency of the moment propelled me forward, and for the first time, I felt the fragile threads of my identity mutating into something resilient and fierce. The past lingered like a shadow, but I could stand amidst the darkness and forge my way through, even without a map guiding me. As we darted from the building into the collapsing chaos outside, adrenaline surged, slipping through the creeping tendrils of doubt threatening to suffocate my hopes. Each step multiplied the uncertainty threading through my heart, mingling dread with the refreshing tinge of empowerment. Just as we crossed the street, the unmistakable silhouette of my stepmother's imposing figure fogged my vision through the debris of what used to be my reality. She stood on a nearby corner, her eyes unsettlingly calm, exuding an aura of power that paralyzed the air around me, proof of her omnipotent grasp on my life. "We're running out of time," Nathan muttered urgently, his determination sharpening as he gripped my arm lightly. Then, in an unexpected twist, my stepmother turned her back to us, a thing of icy perfection. She seemed altogether unbothered by the scattered chaos around her, an enviable confidence trickling from her movements. In the hazy distance, her words seemed to echo even before they reached me. "You will never escape the legacy of my choosing." Each syllable struck home, whipping pain into a hard knot within my gut. Suddenly, my entire being ignited with clarity. Those words were not merely a statement, they were a threat. It reaffirmed everything I feared and all I desperately sought to break free from in this moment of clarity. But before I could process the weight of her proclamation, a swift movement caught my eye, one of the others darting forward, a mere spectre in the shared shroud of darkness. And as we stood locked in confrontation with the approaching spectre of my stepmother's influence, I realized I had entered a treacherous game, my heart desperately vying for a chance amid the crowd of upheaval. And just as my pulse steadied with resolution, a realization sliced through the haze. I had become the very fulcrum on which the balance hinged. The key to dismantling her empire once and for all, if only I could survive long enough to take control. The enormity of my position sank in, fierce and electric, even as the consequences roared around us like wildfire. But with the undeniable truth pulsing through me came an additional realization: no matter how tightly I grasped that power, I could never truly shake off her shadow. She would come for me, and when she did, every choice I made from this moment forward would determine my fate in both known and unknown ways. The real battle, I understood in my bones, was just poised to begin. I stood at the edge of everything I had ever known, the cacophony of chaos swirling around me as I watched my stepmother fade into the distance. My heart pounded against my ribs, the sound almost deafening in the hush that followed our escape. Time had fractured, changing the course of my life in mere moments, and pushing me toward an abyss of uncertainty. "Elena!" Jake's voice pulled me back to the moment. I turned toward him, searching for answers in those piercing blue eyes, feeling the weight of my past pressing down on me like a lead blanket. "We need to move," I promise, you're not alone in this. The urgency in his tone pierced the fog of my thoughts. I hesitated, my mind racing against the currents of doubt they had fed me all my life. What do you mean? How can I help if I'm just a girl they underestimated? My voice trembled, the cracks forming once more. That's exactly what they think, Nathan interjected, his demeanor fierce and resolute. They see your resilience as a weakness, but that's where they're wrong. The truth of those words resonated within me. Years of silence and doubt had suffocated my identity. For too long, the echoes of my stepmother's cruelty had drowned out the girl I had sought to become. I inhaled deeply, the aroma of wet earth and burnt asphalt filling my lungs. I had spent so long trapped in darkness. Now, the burning flame of defiance flickered to life inside my chest. I'm ready, I declared, surprising even myself. Just show me what to do. Mira stepped forward, her presence calm amidst the swirling chaos. We need to reach the old warehouse on the edge of town. It's where they convene, and it might be our only chance to uncover the truth. You'll find leverage there. With each step, the fragments of who I had been began to stitch together into a hopeful tapestry, one woven not from shame but from strength. I felt Jake's reassurance at my side as we sprinted through the debris-laden streets, the adrenaline of our flight spurring us onward, but my heart still wavered as the shadows of my stepmother's threats echoed in my mind. Jake, what if she finds me first? What if I can't fight back? I gasped, my voice cracking under the pressure. They won't expect you to fight back, he replied, his confidence lighting a fire of purpose within me. You'll do what's necessary to protect yourself. As we neared the warehouse, my breath steadied, shifting from fear to anticipation. I understood that this was not solely about escaping. It was about reclaiming my narrative, a story penned in the ink of truth rather than deception. I was tired of being a victim in someone else's tale. The warehouse loomed above us, its haunted structure reminiscent of old, forgotten dreams. Shadows moved within, meshing uneasily with the gust of wind that swirled outside. I took a step closer, the sense of impending confrontation prickling at the edges of my resolve. Jake pushed the door open, its rusty hinges creaking like the whispers of secrets long held. We entered cautiously, the atmosphere thick with tension and anticipation. Nathan positioned himself in front, his gaze scanning the room for threats. Stay alert, he warned, and I felt the collective breath of my newfound allies as we stood on the threshold of possibility. Inside, the ghostly remains of long-abandoned crates lined the walls, dust particles illuminated by the scattered beams of light filtering through cracked windows. But my focus was elsewhere. It was zeroed in on a flickering light in the far corner, a hastily thrown together meeting spot. As we approached, silhouettes came into view, defiant faces etched with determination that mirrored my own. I could feel the rhythm of solidarity pulsing through the room, beckoning courage forth from its slumber. They were allies united, and together, we would intersect our narrative with theirs. Welcome, Elena, a woman standing among the group exclaimed, her voice firm yet warm. We've been waiting for you. This is a fight against everything your stepmother protects, but you have something she fears: courage. Before I could respond, a crack echoed through the air. My heart dropped at the sound. A figure stepped into the light, emerging from the shadows. My breath hitched. It was Hera, figure clad in darkness, her eyes aflame with malevolence, possessing the authority that had once shackled me. Elena, darling, she said with a smile that smelled of deceit. I heard you were playing hero. But did you really think you could escape me? The shadows always follow. Fear clawed at my throat as I stood frozen, the past rushing back in a suffocating wave. But then, as I glanced at Jake beside me, I felt the embers of my defiance igniting fiercely once again. We were not alone. Together, we could end this. I've fought too hard to be controlled by you, I shouted, summoning strength I never realized I possessed. The lift of my chin and the solidity in my voice astonished even me. It's time for you to face the truth you've hidden from me. Her smile faltered, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her features that emboldened the burgeoning fight inside me. You're a fool. You have no idea what forces you're playing with. No, I said resolutely, meeting her gaze. I know exactly what I'm fighting for. am reclaiming my life, my power, and the truth you've kept from me. I am not merely a shadow. I am the light. With that declaration, something within me shifted. The pull of fear turned to unwavering strength. The past splintered beneath the weight of conviction, and I understood then, as the others rallied around me, that the culmination of this moment was not about escaping, it was about standing my ground, even amid uncertainty. The air crackled. As her expression darkened, the very foundation of her power quaked at the edges, and sparks of resistance came to life. I embraced every ounce of light coursing through me, ready to ignite my narrative into a blazing flame, one that would illuminate the shadows she had cast for too long. And just as she surged forward, a flicker of understanding coursed through me, a realization unsheathed in truth. I would confront her, forging a path through the encumbering darkness, and together, with Jake and my allies, we would emerge triumphant. In that moment, I knew I had found my voice, a force unstoppable, refusing to be shackled by the confines of someone else's legacy. The shadows can try to follow, but they cannot extinguish what has been born anew. And as I stood ready to face her, I whispered to myself the mantra that would guide me: I am not a victim, but a warrior, against all odds thrust into an unyielding battle that was finally my own. With the spark of an epiphany in my heart, I stepped forward, the light flaring brighter than ever before. I would no longer allow my stepmother's tyranny to dictate my narrative. This was the moment of reckoning. No longer a shadow. I would carve my own path to the truth, the journey stretching into the horizon like sunlight breaking dawn, declaring that I am here unshakable, unstoppable, and finally free.